So we're going to go through our risk factors and protective factors now, and I'm going to break each of these up into their skin, breast and lung, and I'll also do colorectal as well, because from the statistics, colorectal is the second largest cause of mortality for cancer. So, skin cancer, risk factors, okay? First of all, exposure to the sun and UV rays, especially when the sun is at its strongest, which is between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., okay? So it's not saying that like you can go out in the sun before 10 and after 2 and you'll be all right. You still need to do your protective factors, but you should try and avoid it in this middle of the day time. Also, exposure to the sun at a younger age, they found drastically increases the chance of melanoma appearing in later years. So I did talk in the previous video about how cancer is much higher correlated with being, over the age of 65, and then by 75 it's 1 in 3, and 85 it's a 1 in 2. So let's say like for the first 15, 16, 17 years of your life, you were like a sun baby. You went out, you were tanning, you were just doing things that people do because they're young, and they don't think about this. And then like you get to like 21, for example, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm really worried about getting melanoma, so I'm going to start covering up, right? So from 21 all the way up to like 65, every day before you left the house, you like slip, slop, slap, wrap, you're like fully sun conscious, you never do these things, you do all of these things, which is amazing. There's still a chance you can get melanoma, all right? Because the damage to your skin cells or epithelial cells can reappear when you're older and the cells start to break down anyway, right? So there are major risk factors, and they are modifiable, all right? You can do things about them. Now, non-modifiable risk factors, fair skin, light hair, and I don't mean like dyeing your hair is going to fix it, but if you are a person who naturally has fair skin and naturally has lighter colored hair, you are more at risk of getting skin cancer. And if you are a person who has a large number of moles or freckles on their body, you are at a larger risk of getting skin cancer. And they are non-modifiable. Now, protective factors sort of mirror this a bit. Cover exposed skin as much as possible when you do go out in the sun. Wearing sunscreen for all the bits that you can't cover with clothing. Wearing a hat and sunglasses as well will help. Avoiding UV when it is strongest between 10 and 2. And a couple other things that people don't think about. If you live close to the equator, you are closer to the sun, and therefore the UV concentration there is actually stronger. So therefore, if possible, if you have the chance, move away from the equator. But for some people that will be non-modifiable as well. But it can be modified, like if you really wanted it to be. And the last one, getting a regular skin check every 12 months, okay? So I spoke about how skin cancers can often be cut out and therefore not turn malignant and go through the body through metastasis. So if you are getting a regular check every 12 months and you do get a skin cancer and they remove it and it doesn't go through your bloodstream, then you're okay. It's okay, all right? So they're all your protective factors that are modifiable. And the last one, which is non-modifiable, being a dark-skinned person, okay? Now, dark-skinned people still get skin cancer, but they are less likely to do so. So that's skin. All right. So now we're going to go through breast cancer. So the risk factors for breast cancer are being overweight and obese. So this is sort of like a 1-2 punch. So carrying simply more fatty tissue in your breast area is going to put more stress on the cells in that. But actually that's not the main reason why it contributes to breast cancer. The main reason is that the more fat mass you carry on your body, whether you're a male or a female, it will affect the amount of estrogen that you have in your body. Now we know that estrogen is the female sex hormone, but both males and females have it, okay? More fat tissue increases estrogen levels, and higher estrogen levels is highly correlated with developing breast cancer, all right? Yeah. Number two, alcohol consumption. So consuming alcohol is also highly correlated with breast cancer, and also high alcohol consumption, it generally goes hand in hand with being overweight and obese too. And the last one is a late maternal age for first-term pregnancies. So that means like if you're over the age of 40, you're a female, you're over the age of 40 and you are just getting pregnant for the first time, those individuals have higher risk of breast cancer. Now, I'm not exactly sure of the reasons why that is, but the statistics show that females who have their first-term pregnancy over 40 have higher correlation with breast cancer. Non-modifiable risk factors for breast cancer include gender. It should be very obvious to you that females are highly more likely to get breast cancer than males. However, that doesn't mean that males don't get it. Males can get breast cancer, so they still get cancer in the fatty tissues surrounding the chest area, and it's called breast cancer. However, it's not that high, all right? Second one, family history. If your mother or your grandmother or your great-grandmother had breast cancer, then you are more likely to get breast cancer. And age, so simply getting older, all right, will highly correlate with breast cancer. Now, protective factors for breast cancer, we've got getting regular mammograms. So same as the skin ones, getting a 12-month check. So Breast Screen Australia do an awesome job. You know, like I said, they set up clinics, or you can just go into your GP and nurse and whatever and get a check. Because once again, because it occurs in the epithelial cells, if they detect a tumor in your breast, they can most of the time have that tumor removed before it goes malignant and metastasis occurs. I should add there as well, like regular mammograms, but also regular self-checking, all right, which I did mention has increased. Any doctor can give you information on that, or you can just even look it up online on how to self-check breasts, and that should start occurring as well. You're never too young. Avoiding excess weight gain for these reasons over here, and regular physical activity. So a healthy body will reduce your chance of your cells dividing abnormally, but also regular physical activity helps with the weight gain, etc., etc. So you can see how these things start to add up, like I did mention it in the other video, but like let's say you are a female, okay, your grandmother had breast cancer, okay, you drink a lot of alcohol and you're overweight. All of a sudden you've just got like 1, 2, 3, 4 factors that are, you know, applying to your lifestyle currently for you to get breast cancer, and those individuals are the ones that need to make change before something bad happens. So that's breast. Third one, we got lung cancer, all right? Big one, risk factor, smoking, okay? And I've put in brackets here like things that people can smoke: cigarettes, vaping, marijuana, etc., all correlated with developing lung cancer. However, cigarettes, because there's such a big body of evidence behind them, cigarettes, if you're a cigarette smoker, you are 20 times more likely to develop lung cancer than a non-cigarette smoking individual. So non-smoking individuals can still get lung cancer, but if you smoke cigarettes, you're like 20 times higher, which is crazy. Cigarettes are bad. They're just bad. The other one is like exposure to other airborne carcinogens, all right? So asbestos, lead. If you work at like a place that uses heavy chemicals to clean things down, you need to be wearing face masks, all that kind of stuff. Pollution, I should probably write pollution there too, all right? So all that stuff, exposure to those things can contribute to your lungs degrading, and therefore more chance of those cells dividing abnormally, you develop lung cancer. Non-modifiable ones here, I didn't write it there, but hopefully you can see modifiable, non-modifiable. Family history, once again, if somebody in your family, and not just your mother this time, but a mother or father has lung cancer or has had lung cancer, then you are more likely to get lung cancer. And age. Smoking, just like skin cancer damage, even if you do quit, okay, that damage can last for many, many years, and then when you get to 65 and over, those cellular divisions may start to become abnormal. Now, protective factors for lung cancer. Don't inhale chemicals, all right? Your lungs are not like your stomach, so your stomach's full of acid. You can put pretty much a lot of things into your stomach and your stomach will deal with it, okay? And if you can't deal with it, it will come out the other end in a very bad situation, but your lungs are not the same. There is nothing in your lungs to break things down. So when you do smoke, all that stuff you're going, like the tar and all that kind of stuff, that just sits there. There's no way for your body to get rid of it out of your lungs, okay? Same as all the other things that you can inhale, like chemicals, like asbestos, lead, pollution, all that kind of stuff. It just stays there, all right? Which will obviously degrade the health of those cells and therefore more likely to divide abnormally. If you do smoke, you should quit, all right? Quitters do have a much reduced chance of developing lung cancer, even though they've smoked in the past, as opposed to somebody who continues to smoke. Regular GP checkups, obviously, especially if you are a smoker or even if you're not a smoker or you've smoked in the past, still getting a regular checkup. You should be going for a GP checkup once every 6 months, all right? Medicare actually will cover 2 at a minimum, and then obviously more people can get more from that. But yeah, everybody should be going twice a year just for no reason other than can you look at me, just get a checkup. Let's do some tests. And the last one, second last one, because I am going to add one on, regular aerobic physical activity. So if we know that this cancer is generated in the lungs, we know we can strengthen and make our lungs more healthy by training aerobically. So remember those guidelines, 20 minutes at, 60 to 85% of your maximum heart rate intensity will develop a better working respiratory system, and a stronger, healthier respiratory system is less likely to abnormally cell divide. The last one that I thought of is wearing face masks. So if you are somebody who does work with chemicals, and there are lots of people around the world that work with very, very, very nasty chemicals, wear a face mask, okay? Like the whole COVID-19 thing that just hit last year is a good sign of this. By covering your nasal cavity and your mouth and basically filtering the air before it gets into your body, can stop a lot of illness, disease, and bad things from entering your body and therefore keeping your lungs healthier. So there are people that do need to work in these situations, or there are people that live in very poorly polluted places, but by simply wearing face masks, they're able to negate all of those effects. So that's lung cancer. So I'm going to rub this off and then just quickly go through colorectal cancer too. So colorectal cancer, the reason I'm bringing it up, even though you only need to know about skin, breast and lung, is that we do know that it is the second highest cause of mortality as an individual cancer. All right, and as far as gender, it's the third highest for males and females, and it still has a high incidence rate for males and females too. So colorectal cancer, cancer of the bowel, all right? Your bowel's simple function is basically to absorb all the nutrients and the good things in your body and then push through all the stuff that it doesn't need. So if you're consuming a poor diet, which is high in fat, high in sugar, and low in fiber, one, you're going to make it harder for your bowel to actually get things moving through, because fiber is what keeps things moving. Fiber also cleans your bowel as it goes through it. So low fiber means that food particles could literally sit there for a long time and, ferment and rot and stuff inside your body. And obviously that's going to affect the quality of the cells in the bowel. Drug and alcohol usage, so consuming alcohol, consuming drugs, especially orally. So obviously alcohol's orally, but there are drugs you can do either way, but drugs that you consume orally will affect the bacteria in your bowel, like the healthy bacteria in your bowel. And being overweight and obese. And this one's probably more related to the first point, being poor diet. So they just know that overweight and obese people have higher rates of colorectal cancer, but you're probably overweight and obese anyway because your diet sucks, or you drink too much alcohol and take too many drugs. Non-modifiable, family history, age, stuff like that. Protective factors. Healthy, nutritious diet is number one, all right? So consuming fresh food, high in fiber, low in fats, and as unprocessed as possible. Now, I'm not saying everyone to go organic and vegan, because actually, there's not a large amount of evidence, if any, to state that organic food is better for you than normal food that you just get from Woolies and Coles, as long as it's still fresh produce, okay? Even like a bag of frozen peas is still perfectly healthy, all right? However, what you don't want to be doing is doing all of your shopping from the frozen meal section, so that stuff that's already been created in a factory somewhere and then frozen and shipped to the store, because that's highly processed, and you don't want to be buying lots of things in boxes and bags and things and eating that stuff, because that's highly processed too, all right? Getting a regular checkup, and to add to this, to make it easier, because the Australian government is aware that colorectal cancer is a bad thing, they've actually developed like a take-home kit, and actually a mail kit, in the fact that I think once you get to the age of 55, the government automatically sends you out one these days. And for want of a better word, it's basically you poop in a bag, all right? They send you out this kit, you put some fecal matter into like a very, very tightly triple sealed airtight bag, and then you send it back to a government lab and they examine it and they look for any irregularities which could lead you to developing colorectal cancer. And if so, they let you know and they say, hey, you should probably go to the doctor and go and get a colonoscopy to get a better look at this thing. Yeah, so that's colorectal cancer, risk factors, protective factors. And now we're just going to move on to our determinants. All right, so first of all, our determinants, we're going to go through skin cancer. So socioeconomically, looking at education, and socioculturally, looking at the media. So the media and the education together have increased awareness from health campaigns about skin cancer to the Australian population. And therefore, we're seeing an increased incidence of skin cancers simply because more people are aware from education and from the media that skin cancer is bad, and so they're going to get their skin checked, and therefore, more people are having little tiny skin cancers removed before they become malignant. So that's why we see that skin cancer is high up on our incidence list, but very low down now on our mortality list, all right? Socioeconomically also, people who work in blue collar jobs, so in other words, outdoor workers and labourers, myself, okay, I'm outdoors with PE and sport. We are at increased risk simply because we work outdoors in the sun, all right? I actually don't get a choice as to whether I can avoid prac between 10 and 2, which sucks, all right, for my risk of developing skin cancer, as opposed to somebody who works in an office, right? Environmentally, and I did touch on it before, but also if you simply just live closer to the equator, you will experience an increased risk of developing skin cancer. A negative one, at the bottom here, socioculturally, tan skin is still seen as desirable, right? Most people in Australia, if you put two individuals next to each other who looked exactly the same, they're going to go that the tan person looks heaps better. The tan girl or the tan guy is like hot, and the pale girl and the pale guy is just like okay, even though it's the same person, just one's got tan skin and one doesn't, right? And therefore, it increases risk behaviours such as tanning without sunscreen or putting oil on or whatever. And I'm saying oil's bad, sunscreen's good, and therefore more chance of developing skin cancers later in life, all right? Now, in saying that, like fake tanning is a great alternative, but there's still this stigma about it because like someone will apply fake tan and come to school and everyone's like, oh, you look like a carrot. That's horrible, right? They're actually doing something to try and fulfill this need without endangering their life and health. So we need to change that and sort of, I'm not saying encourage fake tanning because that would be, I mean, it wouldn't be funny, but if everyone was coming to school with fake tan, that would be interesting. But what we do need to do is not mock people for fake tanning because it is a much better alternative to the one that's going to lead you to get cancer. So that's skin cancer. All right, breast cancer determinants. Socioculturally, okay, later marriage, which is sort of impressed upon by family and peers, etc., and therefore later pregnancy, does increase the risk of developing breast cancer. All right. Socioeconomically, more females these days are career-driven, so they actually have jobs, they have a focus. This is what I want to do with my life, etc. They're no longer just a stay-at-home baby machines that they were in the 50s, or which was impressed upon in the 50s that that's what girls did, which is horrible, but whatever. I'm glad I wasn't alive then. But because more females are working, and because they're equal rights, careers, etc., therefore that adds to the top point. They're getting married later and having later first-term pregnancies, okay? Because instead of having babies early, they're having babies when they're ready or when they're at a point with their career and they can do that. Environmentally, there are limited opportunities for mammograms rurally and remote, okay? So living here in Newcastle or Lake Macquarie, you can go to a Breast Screen Australia truck or you can just go to your local GP or whatever and get that done. However, while Breast Screen Australia do a fantastic job with mobile clinics going rurally and remote, that only happens like once or twice a year and only to selected towns. Like they don't visit every single town in remote New South Wales, for example. So if you miss that opportunity, you might have to wait another 12 months. And in that time, like you could go from having a tiny, tiny undetectable tumour into something very malignant due to metastasis, and then bad things happen. Socioculturally, the media has assisted with increased awareness around self-checking, okay? And also they run a thing, or Breast Cancer Australia run a Pink Ribbon Day, all right, to make everyone aware that, today is the day that we are, celebrating our achievements in breast cancer detection and survival rates, and honouring and thinking of the people who have experienced breast cancer, et cetera, et cetera. And lastly, socioeconomically disadvantaged individuals are at an increased risk of developing breast cancer simply because of the risk factors that we know go along with socially economically disadvantaged peoples, such as being overweight, alcohol usage, etc. That's breast cancer. All right, so our last one I'm going to cover here is lung cancer. So socioeconomically, looking at education, and socioculturally, the media have both played a great part in increasing awareness of the dangers of smoking. All right, so we teach about it here at school. You learn about it in primary school, you learn about it in high school, and then you learn about it when you watch advertisements on TV. And therefore, that increased awareness of how bad smoking is for you has helped the quit rate. All right, so decreasing smoking rates, and therefore, less people smoking means less people get lung cancer. Environmentally, workplaces have implemented improved safety equipment for their workers who are working with chemicals and carcinogens, such as like asbestos used to be a major one. So lots of them way back in the day, not way back in the day, we're only talking about 20 years ago here. Asbestos was a building material which was highly used. And then when they started removing it from building sites to then make new buildings, new fences, et cetera, those workers were actually getting really, really sick and then like developing lung cancer. So they made this link between asbestos having like really fine particles in the air and damaging the cells of the lungs. So therefore, these days, if something's got asbestos in it, like people are like full getting kitted up in like sperm suits, which is basically like the full like head to toe, completely sealed in suits that you have to wear. Plus they generally put a massive cover over the whole work site to then remove like one tiny bit of asbestos to make sure that none of those particles can escape and endanger people. So because of the improved safety equipment and the awareness around the effect that has had, that has therefore increased the protection against developing lung cancer. Socioculturally, females, we have seen like a slight increase in their rate of smoking, and that could be attributed to the fact that more females are working. So in careers, stressful jobs, everyone's on smoko, I'm going to go on smoko too, therefore more smoking. So while we haven't seen an increase directly in the mortality rate of females yet, you watch this space. So in the future, the increased rate of smoking in females now could result in increase in lung cancer rates later on, because we know that the older you get, the more likely you are to develop the cancers. Socioculturally, lung cancer has a higher rate of mortality in older individuals simply due to them using tobacco like 30 plus years ago before we had any awareness around this type of stuff, all right? So all the TV ads and stuff that you see on TV and that even I see on TV weren't around when I was a kid. My mum smoked, my dad smoked, like everybody smoked. Everybody smokes. These days, like you go out and hardly anyone smokes, which is really good, and we need to keep it that way. And finally, socioeconomically, same points as before, we know that socioeconomically disadvantaged people have an increased risk of lung cancer simply because of the risk behaviours that go associated with their lifestyles, more smoking, more, generally more blue collar jobs, which relates to this one here. So they're working with chemicals more, et cetera, et cetera. So that was the determinants for lung cancer. Now we'll just get on to the groups. Okay, so groups. So I've got two major groups up top here, and then I've got a whole bunch of other people that you can lump into groups as well. So our first group is obviously Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Due to increased smoking, increased poor diet, and less protective behaviours, they are more likely to develop things like breast and lung cancer. Socioeconomically disadvantaged people, due to their just increased risk behaviours in general and lower levels of education around risk protective behaviours, they have a higher chance of developing all three of them, skin, breast and lung. Then we've got our other groups. Smokers. You can call smokers a group, and therefore obviously they are more likely to get lung cancer as opposed to people who don't belong to that group. Family history. So all the people that have a family history of cancer in their their heritage or lineage they have a risk of developing cancers. Fair-skinned heritage, so Australia is very multicultural, but people who have lineage, dating back to fair-skinned countries and continents, therefore have higher risk of skin cancer. And women with late maternal age, or just women who don't have children, which is a thing, have much higher risk of developing breast cancer. I did include some other groups down there on your notes, which I didn't write up, but I'll just quickly cover them. People with high-fat, low-fiber diets, and people who spend long times of sun exposure. So that could be like, teenagers, etc., or people after the look. Right, so that is the end of part 2 of the cancer video, and that is the end overall of cancer. Well, I wish it was the end of cancer. Let's get there one day. Thanks, bye.